Hello and a warm welcome to Federal's special program, Capital Beat. Now, the big story which everyone is discussing and thinking about as to what happened is that India chose to stay away from the high profile ceremony in Davos that formally launched the proposed Board of Peace, which is an initiative spearheaded by President Donald Trump with the stated aim of establishing lasting peace in Gaza. Now, despite a direct invitation extended to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, New Delhi opted not to send any representative to the event. Now, the officials and the experts familiar with the matter say that the decision came after extensive internal deliberations reflecting India's cautious approach towards the sensitive proposal. Now, what has happened in the meanwhile is that President and this Truth Social post, which has been put out by Donald Trump this morning. This is a post which was put out this morning, where this is a post on Mark Carney, who is a Canadian Prime Minister, and to him he writes, "Please let this letter serve to represent that the Board of Peace is withdrawing its invitation to you regarding Canada's joining what will be the most prestigious board of leaders ever assembled at any time. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Donald Trump." Now, everyone knows that Mark Carney, the kind of speech and the stunning speech which he made, actually symbolized his resistance or Canada's resistance to Trump's hegemony. And this is how Trump has reacted, that he has withdrawn the invitation. Now, what he did with Emmanuel Macron, everyone has seen that. His private messages, Donald Trump put it out in the public domain. And he also threatened him with a 200% tariff on wine and champagne. So now, if India has taken a cautious approach when it comes to this Board of Peace for Gaza, how is this going to help India? That is question number one. Second, what are the reasons? What are the deliberations that have gone inside behind India taking a cautious approach or a wait and watch approach, if I may say? And will it help India in the long run? Now, joining me this evening is Professor Gulshan Sachdeva, who is a professor from the European Center of Studies from JNU. Thank you so much, sir, for joining. We have Kallol Bhattacharya, who's the Assistant Foreign Affairs Editor at The Hindu. Thank you so much, Kallol, for joining. And I'll begin with Professor Sachdeva. Professor Sachdeva, how do you see this wait and watch approach of New Delhi when it comes to this Board of Peace spearheaded by Donald Trump? Now, is this approach right, or should India have been part of the board? Because I was reading a few editorials today which said that India should have been on the board only to ensure that it has a say. What would you say to that?
Thank you, Nilu. Thank you for having me. I think this is a serious matter. And I think what India is doing is correct. And in fact, India is not the only one which is doing the same way.
Yes.
This invitation has been extended to many other countries as well. And only very few countries, about 20, they have already joined. But very few have actually said categorically no. Which is the latest one which has really said no is the Spanish Prime Minister, where he said that, we are not going to join this. The French have more or less said no. And all other Europeans which were invited, including the UK, still they haven't really said a very clear indication what they are going to do. And the same is also true with China and Russia. So India, I think, obviously has reasons to do what they have done. One is, everybody knows the kind of downturn in the India-US relations. If things were different, it was a different time, India would have immediately joined this group. Now, I think everybody has, in fact, all the people, those who have written on this, they have made a couple of points. One is obviously the composition of this board. It's headed by President Trump and his all families and friends. Then you also have to what extent this is really compatible with the UN Charter. Then you also have issue of paying 1 billion dollar basically as a kind of a membership fee if you want to be a permanent member. And the most importantly, since this is supposed to be a starting with Gaza and the Palestinian representation is not there. Uh, so, and then most importantly, again, is it's not just, I mean, the whole thing went from the UNSC that started, it was about Gaza. It was a peace plan. But now, and that's why, in fact, some of the, it was kind of approved by the UNSC as well. They got the kind of endorsement from there. Of course, Russia and China both abstained. But since then, things have changed. And now this has been expanded to everything. Which, I mean, whatever they feel, they can go to any conflict, they can intervene in any conflict. That's what they feel. And then all the reconstruction, everything else. So there are large number of issues on which India has to, being a member of, believe that the multilateralism is still the way to go, and the UN is the core of that multilateralism. And so obviously, and the kind of relations we have now at the moment, so India obviously would not say no, because the moment you
No,
say
but
no,
Dr.
you know.
Sachdeva, if I may interrupt you, now India has, of course, not been part of this board of peace, but declining the invitation, could it be seen as a reluctance to engage on a major international issue, which may or may not affect the future engagement with Trump? So, what would you really say to that?
No, first thing is that they have not declined it. And I think the same is true with many other countries as well.
Hmm.
They have not declined it, but they have not participated in the initial meeting of this. So
Hmm.
it means, I think this is also a signal. If things go right, you are
No,
negotiating a
but then
trade deal.
they are still waiting, Professor Sachdeva, which means that they are not, India won't be the part of the core group, like what Pakistan is. Now, look at the manner in which Pakistan had been sitting right next to Donald Trump and sending out clear messages. And it was a signal. We'll talk about it later also, because Pakistan scene with Donald Trump does raise red flags for India. We'll come to that. But the point is that, like, Pakistan is part of the core team, I mean, the inner circle. India is not part of that inner circle. Shouldn't India have been there?
Well, I don't know to what extent Pakistan is really part of that inner circle, but the question is, if you are sitting there, then also you are sending certain signals. You are sending certain signals to the US. At the same time, you are also sending all kind of signals to all countries in the world. So, I mean, India claims to be the leader of the global South, and the kind of position India has taken on the Palestinian issue. So all other countries also would be watching very carefully what you do here, whether you get any benefit out of this, or in fact, it will become actually a serious embarrassment in the long run. So we do not know what would happen. That many, in fact, what you have seen in the case of Europe, now many of the Europeans, they could have easily gone ahead with joining this. They were the one at the UN Security Council, both UK and France. Actually, they kind of endorsed this. But now, since then, things have changed. And when, now the Greenland issue was there, as a result of this, the mood was very, very different. And if things change again, if they are able to resolve something positively in their, I mean, in a manner, the Greenland issue, maybe many of the Europeans will just join again. So, things are changing pretty fast. And China and Russia will play their own games. I mean, I mean, how the Ukraine negotiations go, how things happen, depending on that, Russia would also decide. So, every country is watching, every country is, trying to balance their, positive and negative, and then only they will decide. Now, for Pakistan, it was relatively very easy decision, because first thing is they wanted to be closer to the, the Trump administration, and they feel that they have been doing reasonably well with him in the last couple of months. So they immediately, grab this opportunity. For them, it perhaps makes sense, but not in case of India.
Okay, so I'll come to Kallol now. Kallol, how do you see India's wait and watch, or rather a cautious approach like what Professor Sachdeva is saying, that it's not a complete decline, but they are gauging and they are trying to measure their steps, and then probably they'll take a call. How would Donald Trump view this India's absence from the Board of Peace?
Well, I think India has been demanding reform in the United Nations structure that came after the Second World War for a pretty long time. And what Donald Trump is doing is actually creating a parallel
I can't hear him.
multilateral
Sorry.
organization that will perform more or less like a United Nations sort of an organization. But the difference here is that there is no clear-cut charter of this organization. As a result, what's happening is that India is in an inconvenient spot where India, which has shaped its foreign policy, especially on contentious issues like Palestine, say Sudan, Congo, Afghanistan, on the basis of non-interference and non-intervention and equal rights to the contesting parties, etc., is also being made to realize that many of its demands, as far as the reform of the United Nations were concerned, were also something that will have to be seen only in the context of the United Nations and not in the context of a parallel organization that is being launched. Now, that's a very theoretical kind of an understanding that I'm presenting here. Now comes the question that who is launching this parallel organization? It's not someone like Woodrow Wilson who launched the League of Nations 100 years ago. But there are Woodrow Wilson-like ideas also in Board of Peace. For example, the Board of Peace, when it comes to Gaza, is starting this whole idea that some elder statesmen of the world will sit down and solve the matter, or get into governance issues, especially for Gaza. And this is very similar to what happened after the Treaty of Versailles, where the idea of trusteeship council was floated for West Asian regions, certain regions of West Asia. Now, this is more like reviving the colonial model of the early 20th century, and India being a decolonized power will naturally find it highly problematic. Now, again, it comes down to whether Prime Minister Modi should have been there alongside President Trump, because when we saw the launch of the Second World War, India was second at the end of the Second World War, when we saw the launch of the United Nations, India was not yet an independent country, and India did not send the kind of representatives that today India would send at the level of Prime Minister and others. At that time, we sent our diplomats. But here, we cannot really send our diplomats. But the whole idea of Trump's world order requires someone who is equivalent to Trump, a prime minister or the president of that nature. So here comes the issue of chemistry. And Trump will not accept anybody less than the status of the prime minister. We can't, in the Sharm el-Sheikh summit of last year, India sent Kirti Vardhan Singh as India's representative, though the invite was for Prime Minister Modi. Here again, the invite is for Prime Minister. And if India continues to send a minister in place of Mr. Prime Minister Modi, then the whole idea
Right.
would look a little inconvenient, that perhaps India is indicating its disinclination, if not a refusal or a decline of the offer.
Right.
Because it's a world where things are being interpreted on social media very, very quickly. Look, who has done what. Does it mean a complete no? Does it mean a negation? Yes, India has been very cautious, but India has not said it is being cautious. India has not said anything as far as accepting or rejecting the letter is concerned. So in this world, perhaps staying silent on an issue would also mean negation. I think that is where this is a very, very sensitive matter, and time is fast moving. So at this moment, what appears to be cautious may also be risky.
Right. Okay. So I'll come to Professor Sachdeva now. So, Professor Sachdeva, Pakistan was also seen sitting with Donald Trump, and the kind of optics which were being played out. We saw Shehbaz Sharif sitting next to Donald Trump, and then he's signaling at Asim Munir, who was sitting in the audience. Then Trump endorsing Asim Munir's presence over there. Does it actually raise red flags for India? That kind of optics being playing out at a global forum like this. But before I get your answer, I would like to play out that bite where again Donald Trump makes a mention about the Pakistan-India conflict during Operation Sindoor. Let's listen into what Donald Trump said.
The ultimate goal of peace in June. We obliterated it. It's going to be a great plan, and that's where the border peace really started. And I think we can spread out to other things as we succeed with Gaza. We're going to be very successful in Gaza. It's going to be a great thing to watch. And we can do other things. We can do numerous other things. Once this board is completely formed, we can do pretty much whatever we want to do. And we'll do it in conjunction with the United Nations. You know, I've always said the United Nations has got tremendous potential, has not used it. Yeah, every one of them is a friend of mine. Couple.
So he
Yeah.
also says that we'll do it in conjunction with United States. Apparently, that bite was not there, where he also makes a mention of how he has stopped 8 wars, but United Nations has not done that, and United Nations hasn't proved so beneficial. Professor Sachdeva, to you now. What does Trump mean with when he says that we will do it in conjunction with United States? Now, is he trying to undermine United Nations? Or is he trying to say that we'll work in coordination with United Nations, keeping its structure intact, keeping its integrity intact?
Well, I think his views on United Nations and other multilateral organizations are pretty clear. He doesn't believe any one of them. He does not believe in the international law. But now, since he is launching this a new initiative where he has to really attract large number of countries, obviously he was very cautious. In fact, the whole speech, even earlier before this launch, what he gave at the Davos was, very, very, I think, carefully written speech. And that also somehow, reduced the tempers on Greenland. So they did, pretty good homework, I must say, before that, his speeches, both at the Economic Forum, World Economic Forum, and also at here. So, he may be saying these things, but, the intentions are pretty clear. He doesn't want to be restrained by rules and regulations of international governance. He wants to make his mark that he's the one. These institutions simply are not working, and that he has said many times. And so obviously I'm launching something which perhaps would be, which is much beyond what these things are. I mean, in a normal circumstances, this is fine. When if say, I mean, everybody has been saying he's not the only one who is saying that you do need very serious either reforms of these institutions or something else which can really deliver, because all kind of things which are happening in the world, whether but he's the one who is actually breaking all the rules, starting from trade rules to what he's doing in other places. So, if your relations are very good with that particular country and you do not have any other kind of broader ambitions, then you can go along with him. That's why, in fact, many of the countries have already immediately gone along with him, including Pakistan. But I think India's concern should not be on this kind of matter. What is Pakistan doing or not doing? This is much smaller matter, I must say. When you are talking, India being the one of the major economies, having ambitions to become member of the UNSC and the leader of the global south, etc., etc., all the things, all the ambitions we have, and being large country. Uh, Pakistan, of course, will be doing, things which they feel is in their favor, and they might get certain mileage out of this now. But India's, I think, the game is longer, it's bigger. So, yes, if immediately you might, see certain benefits to Pakistan, or at least Pakistan believes there's certain benefits, they may or may not get it. But India can't just go only by that, what, Prime Minister Sharif is doing there. I mean, India has to first consult with all other major partners. Now, the President Lula is going to be here. India is going to have the BRICS presidency this year. And, India also has to see how the Europeans are also responding. As I said, the Spanish government has clearly said no. France has said no. Germany, Italy, etc. Let's see how they move in that direction. But, my feeling is that many of the Europeans, if their relations are slightly okay now, all of them will go along with the United States. That's what their history has been. But India, can't just look at what the, because these are anyway NATO allies, others are their,
No, but Professor
treaty
Sachdeva,
partners.
you don't feel that if India is adopting a wait and watch approach for Board of Peace, it might impact its negotiations on the tariff deals. It might not have or have not any impact. How do you read that?
No, it will have impact. I mean, obviously, but that for India, the trade deal is an important thing, but the trade deal is not the only thing under the sun which India is really bothered about,
No,
because
but
there are many other larger.
how will Donald Trump view that? I mean, he's not going to take it lightly that, okay, I sent an invite to Prime Minister Modi, and India did not come for that preliminary round of meeting or
Yeah,
participate.
but I think India should not be worried too much about pleasing Donald Trump, or in fact, worrying about what kind of punitive action they can take. I mean, if that is the approach, then I think India should forget about the kind of role. And I think India knows how these things are need to be done. I mean,
Right,
even in the case of Ukraine war, I mean, the kind of position India took, very consistent position for many years. And India has a history of taking more or less those kind of positions. So Indian bureaucracy, I would believe, policymakers know how to deal with this, and there are certain price you also have to pay, because at the end of the day, if you believe that you are a bigger game and you want to be the voice of the global south, that's what they keep saying,
right,
then you also have to go on certain principles, just on this transactional matter, that we can just have perhaps quick trade deal, because if you join this one, that then everybody reads through what you are doing, your actions. So, and anyway, I mean, even the Europeans, being very close allies of the United States, even when they were the they were the one who were talking about all the time about multilateralism and WTO, and they were the one who went basically to have
right.
a deal with the United States. And what happened? Even the deal is still stuck at the moment in the parliament. And even after that, he continued to threaten all their own allies with all different kind of sanctions as well, or tariffs. So it's not that something that you can just please him today and tomorrow he may be angry with something else. So that's how things are. So you should not really worry about those
Right.
issues. Just of course,
No,
I
so
mean,
Professor
if you feel
Sachdeva,
that this could ultimately be beneficial to the
right,
people of Gaza, and maybe to the global governance in one way or the other, when the other institutions are not working, you may
right.
at that point of time join, but you have to make that consensus also among other players as well, in which you also have equal kind of interest in other parts of the world.
No, but there is also a debate about the fact that whether India should have adopted a wait and watch approach, or India should have spelt out things clearly, publicly, and also without equivocation when it comes to the Board of Peace. So, would you endorse that view that no, India should have spelt out things clearly?
No, I don't think that's the best approach, because the moment, here things are just evolving. If
Right,
things are very clear that he has sent, invitation to 60, and out of 60, 58 has basically has accepted, you are the only one who has have to say now yes or no, then it's a problem. Now the
right.
thing is, like you, there are many others, those who are
Hmm.
also taking similar kind of approach. So he can't just single out, because you have not just joined the very first meeting. So you are not saying no. At the same time, depending on ultimately, you know, while doing that, you may also actually shape any new kind of institutional mechanism which is developing.
Right,
Because if you just accept everything, whatever is said, then later on you can't shape things. Now, if you feel that this is going to be useful in one way or the another, either to Gaza or to some other conflicts, then you build a consensus, with Russians, with others, and including with Chinese, to, shape this thing in a manner in which everybody feels that, yes, you can contribute something positively, rather than just making a transaction certain benefit out of this. I think that's the approach India should take, and I think it's the right approach to do at this point of time. Things may
right,
change after 1 week, after 10 days, after 1 month, depending on how others are going to do. Because if tomorrow China also feel that all right, that we have joining, Russians have also joined, most of the Europeans have also joined, then you will have a choice to make.
right,
Now that stage has not really come yet, because now for the Europeans, the major problem has been, they said, you have also invited President Putin, you have also invited, President Lukashenko from Belarus, whom they don't want to share any kind of stage with them. They have been
Right.
many of in the meetings. Their diplomats have been walking whenever a Russian representative is speaking in many of the international forums. So there are different kind of issues every country is grappling with.
Right.
Moreover, in fact, I think this is also made very clear even by the EU foreign policy chief. They said the initial objective of this was about Gaza. If this
Right.
is only about Gaza, we can easily go along with this. But since this has gone much beyond that, then we have to really see what needs to be done.
Right. Okay. So I'll come to Kallol now, and coming back to the Pakistan question, Kallol, to how would you read the proximity of Pakistan? Of course, they have their own vested interest why they are cozying up to Donald Trump. But from India's perspective, how do you see the optics playing out of Shehbaz Sharif sitting next to Donald Trump? Then also that visual is quite viral on the social media, that clip where he's pointing out at Asim Munir, who's sitting in the audience. How would you read that? And how would New Delhi read that optics?
Well, we all know that even the mention of Pakistan makes India uncomfortable. So naturally, the visual of Pakistani leader standing or sitting next to Donald Trump obviously is not a happy thing for India to take note of. But we have to see really what is here for India. Number one, India is already getting that Operation Sindoor comment from Donald Trump on multiple occasions. Donald Trump has talked about his efforts to bring peace at the end of Operation Sindoor from so many platforms, including from Davos. Now, you see, what India is trying to save its most important relationship. And to remember Brajesh Mishra's comments that, he said this in 1990s, that our relation with the United States will not be the closest, but it will be closer than the relations that India has with other countries. So India's relation with the United States is very special. And now, in the context of the trade deal that we are negotiating, it's even more important. So India is trying to save its overall architecture of its relation with the United States from getting hit politically, because the leader of the United States is indicating in his many ways his impatience and displeasure with certain things that, for example, there is no doubt about the fact that Board of Peace is essentially Board of Trump. The leader of this, it's not a collective, it is not going to be a security council or a council of elders. It is apparently a council of statesmen of the world, but then it is, after all, the leader is Trump. Trump is going to be the leader. So it is also for India to make up its mind whether India would like to be included in a setup where there is actually, as India has been demanding, the reform of the United Nations. There will be no scope of reform. And then we also do not know whether this is obviously the first experiment, and this experiment is going to survive, because though we are calling it, for the sake of it, a board of peace, whether this board of peace would last beyond Donald Trump, because it is, after all, the American establishment will have to take a call whether they want to continue this board of peace beyond Donald Trump's tenure. So these are the unwritten and unmentioned things that are in front of India. But what's most important is that even in this particular unwritten format, the discomfort that Pakistan can cause is not something that India can deny. Because in any platform that India leaves open for Pakistan, Pakistan can do its mischief. So far, Donald Trump has talked about Greenland, about Denmark, about Operation Sindoor, but there are other uncomfortable areas that are relevant to India that Donald Trump may also speak under the influence, if he is left totally under the influence of Pakistan. So these are the issues that probably are worrying the Indian policymakers. But such is the situation right now that we have to ensure that our most important relation in the world uh, is somehow saved from getting affected from the overall political atmosphere.
Right. Okay, so I'll come for the final comments to Professor Sajdeva. So, what would you say to this entire initiative of the Board of Peace, India adopting a wait and watch approach, but then also and also at stake are other things like the tariff deal, which is still pending. A lot of answers we need to get from America. So, does that get compromised in any way? What are the pitfalls which India can get into now from here on? Or do you think that this abstention from the board of peace will not impact India in any way?
Well, in fact, at this point of time, our relation with the United States are at the lowest point in the last many, many years. It can go lower further. But of course, at least from the Indian side, they continue to make an effort that at least, because, United States, being United States, you can't just be on the wrong side of the United States. Um and, there are large number of your economic interests, strategic interests, are lined up. But only up to a point you can, take certain things. So this is what is happening at the trade deal. We do not know what is going to happen to that one. Similarly, I think these are the signals. If India would have actually signed a trade deal, and the India-Pakistan thing would have been played again every day, day and night. India would have perhaps, would have been the first one to join. Many of those things. Now it means, this is the thing which has happened between India and the United States. So India is also playing in that sense that, okay, I mean, we can go along with you if, if you feel that there are certain benefits going along with you. Otherwise, there are other options. India is not a small country. I mean, yes, you have a, significant amount of trade with you, but, you also have, other things with other countries and in the whole global south as well. Uh, yes, I mean, everything has its own positive and negatives, and of course, certain price to be paid. So yes, if India would have also joined, like if Prime Minister Modi would have been sitting there, then obviously he would have also got a limelight, and Prime Minister, President Trump would have been. But that's the. But do you want to play that kind of game with the United States, or rather you want to be treated as an independent,
Right.
very respectable country?
Correct.
And I think
Yes.
India chose the what needs to be done in the case of India, because Donald Trump is here for a year or 2 or 3 years. Things, but the India will continue to be there. Indian economy, the Indian policy. So we have seen many ups and downs in the past. At this point of time, yes, things are not going in the right direction between India and the US, but that doesn't mean that you have to really worry too much about certain negative things of that happen, because yes, he may would have perhaps expected that India would immediately join. But his now forget about India. I mean, his own allies, I mean, they are the one who are not even going with him. I mean, forget about
Right.
they have also not said,
Okay.
so I think India, yes, maybe
Yes.
certain price need to be paid, but I think that's the at this point of time, that's the only thing perhaps would have been useful if the government also could have come out with the explanation,
Right.
in a sense that
Yes.
they would have also said that yes, this is what we are doing, rather than one is trying to figure out what India is doing. They could
Right.
have said very clearly, these are the issues in which we are concerned, these are the things which we would like this particular
Exactly.
peace board
Yes.
needs to do. Then things are clear to everyone. But now perhaps they also do not want to perhaps spell out, because they have
Yes. So
still perhaps
that
not even decided.
yes, so that brings me to the final question, Kallol, to you, that India has been silent completely, where they should have spoken something. So, is this silence going to cost heavy for India? What could be the implications? Very briefly, yes.
Well, there is no policy for dealing with Donald Trump. Nobody has a formula. And India is no exception. The fact is, India has little choice. The first priority for India is to save the relationship, especially the economic relationship, the diplomatic relationship, because the United States is an important partner, not just in the global order, but also in South Asia, in India's own neighborhood. So this is the first priority for India. But apart from, the fact is there is no policy and nobody has a magic idea or magic bullet when it comes to solving the Trump riddle. So what India is doing is it's staying quiet or cautious. But the fact is, what will happen tomorrow is also not known. So whether this is a caution born out of wisdom is not really known. So it's an uncertain world where everybody is uncertain about the reality that will come to us tomorrow. For now, there is caution. But whether this is something that will help us, we will get to know tomorrow. So that is the world of uncertainty and Trump's world order. We have to live with it.
Right. All right. So we'll have to end the discussion here. Thank you so much, Professor Sajdeva Kallol. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you.